is quite the rainy day out today. Quite a few people requested from me that I do a part 2 of what I would do differently if I were to reattempt a through hike of the Appalachian Trail, so here's your part 2. And for those of you who are unaware or new to this channel, my name is Laura Evans. This year, 2023, I attempted to through hike the Appalachian Trail. Didn't go quite as planned. I made it just past Hot Springs before I got off trail. So yeah, let's get to what I would do differently. So in the last video, and I'll link it in the description for you guys below, in the last video I talked a lot about what I would do differently actually like on the trail. This video I'm going to talk about a little bit about prep, what I would do differently, and a few things that I would do differently on trail. So first things first, training. So if you guys watch my Appalachian prep videos, I did a video about my training and I talked a lot about how I was training for races. So I had a couple races coming up that year before I was, or the few months before I was going to attempt to through hike the Appalachian Trail. So I was doing a lot of training for those. And it didn't leave me a lot of time to do like hiking training. If I were to reattempt to through hike, one of the things I would do differently for training wise would definitely be to do a little bit more flexibility and mobility, building a lot of the strength within my ankle joints, a lot of strength within my feet, a lot of strength within my knees, my hips, mobility, flexibility, all those things. I would focus a lot on that, a lot more than like the strength training and the cardio. I found one of the biggest issues for me wasn't necessarily the cardio. Like, yeah, you're gonna build up the cardio when you're on trail, and maybe me doing all that race training made the cardio not as bad for me because I had that cardio base built up. So if I weren't to do it, I don't know how it would turn out for me the next go around. But I definitely think the flexibility, the mobility, the ankle strength, the foot strength, kind of those things really were a detriment to my hike. I didn't have that built up and I wasn't working on it on trail. So it really harmed my through hike. So not to say that I wouldn't do any race training, because obviously y'all know I love races. I do have some races coming up that I've signed up for that I am going to document on this channel as well. But I would definitely focus a little bit more on building up that strength, and I've actually already started building up that strength. I started to do some flexibility and mobility at home and just starting to build up that ankle strength again. As y'all know, if you watched my I quit video, my right foot wasn't doing so great, wasn't doing so hot. It is doing much better now. I still have some twinges of pain here and there. It's about a month and a half after me getting off trail at this point. Of me filming this, it is May 15th. So yeah, about a month and a half-ish since I got off trail, a month and 3/4. And another thing with training that I would do a little bit differently, like I said, I did spend a lot of time on my feet because I did a lot of race training, but I would spend a little bit more time in general on my feet. So with race training, you know, you do your runs, you do them quick, and then they're done. They're a couple hours, they're done. What I found on trail is you're hiking all day, like you're on your feet all day. And my body was definitely not used to that, and I think it definitely hurt me in the long run. So just in training, building up a little bit by little, spending more time on my feet, and eventually building up to spending more time on my feet with my backpack on, whether it be hiking or, you know, just standing around the house on my feet instead of sitting on the couch, standing and watching TV. So just kind of spending more time on my feet, spending more time standing versus sitting, I think definitely would help out. Kind of on the same topic, the next thing I would do is hike in different conditions. If you guys watch my trail videos, you know that a big factor of my mood was the weather. I did hike before trail. I did some hiking in the rain, but granted, if you're new here, I do live in Florida. So the weather here is quite warm all the time. So when it is raining, it is like hot rain. It's never cold rain down here. I live in South Florida too. North Florida, it can get cold up there. I lived in Tallahassee, go knows. I lived in Tallahassee for a little bit. So it can get cold up there, but nothing like I saw on the Appalachian Trail. While the last go around, I did do some training in different weather conditions, like hiking in the rain, hiking in the heat, hiking in wind. I didn't do as much prep as I needed to in order to become successful. So here's some of the things that I would do differently, like what I would hike in different. First off, I would do more hiking in the rain. So in my previous training, if it was raining or something, I would typically wait for the rain to stop, or I would plan to do it the next day, or I would plan to do it on a day when it was sunny. I wouldn't typically plan to hike in the rain. I did a couple times so I could test out my rain gear and make sure it worked for me, but I didn't do a lot of it. So definitely hiking more in the rain, whether it be I just plan to hike in the rain, or whether it's like I plan to hike on Sunday and it's raining on Sunday, I gotta go anyways because I plan to hike on Sunday. Kind of doing that, and it's like I gotta just hike no matter what the weather is, I think would definitely help me, because that's what it is on the Appalachian Trail. You wake up in your tent and it's raining, you gotta hike anyways. Like, you can't just, well, I guess you could just stay there if you wanted to, but but if you gotta get to town, you gotta get to town. Like, it is what it is. Doing more prep in the rain I think would definitely help me. Another weather condition would be hiking in the cold. Now this becomes a little bit more difficult. Like I said, I do live in Florida, so just planning out more hikes in the like winter time and going somewhere where it's gonna be cooler I think would help. And camping when it's cold I think would help as well. So sometimes in South Florida we do get the occasional cold snap, and it'll be like 40 or 30s down here, so making a point to be like, oh, it's gonna be cold this weekend, let me go camp. Or like I said, planning trips, maybe go up to the foothills trail and finish that hike when it's cold. Another thing I felt like that held me back was night hiking. I think it's not a weather condition, but it is a thing outside my comfort zone. I never night hiked when I was on the Appalachian Trail. On all of my prep hikes, I never used like my shakedown hikes, I never night hiked. On the foothills trail, I did get up and like pack up when it was in the dark, and I like walked to get my food in the dark, and I walked to the privy in the dark. I remember when I was at Bureau Ford campground I did that, but I didn't really like practice like actually hiking like for hours in the dark. Like, I know some people like get up or mad early and like get up like a few hours before the sun's gonna rise and they start hiking in the dark. I never did that, and I think part of the reason was kind of scary. Ooh, hiking by myself. Part of the reason I didn't want to get up and disturb other people in camp, and other part of the reason was I was just tired and lazy. But I think practicing night hiking, or just like practicing hiking in the dark, would definitely benefit me, because it would kind of help me to get over that fear. Now the problem with doing that down here in South Florida is that none of the day trails are open until sunrise, and they close at sunset, so you can't really do that. So it'd have to be something where it's like I walk around my neighborhood, or I go on a trail like maybe like the Ocean to Lake Trail, which is kind of near me. It's a little bit of a drive, but I could go and do that and practice night hiking. I think that would definitely help me, because like I said in my last video, I want to start getting up earlier and hiking earlier, because it would definitely help me in the long run of like, I would get to camp earlier, I would get better spots at camp, I would have more time in the day to just generally hike and take breaks. So I think getting over that fear would definitely help. So that's definitely something that I would do differently in prep, is practice hiking at night. Okay, the next thing that I would do before trail would be to have discussions with my family and like friends about what I need as far as like support on trail. Now, talking to my family before trail and like friends before trail, it was mostly like everyone like really thought I was gonna make it. Everyone really believed in me. As far as like what they were telling me, I don't know what they were saying behind my back, but like as far as what they were saying to my face, it felt like they all thought I was really gonna make it and like do the full trail. And I found like when I was doubting in myself, my family just wanted to support whatever I felt like, and my friends just wanted to support whatever I felt like in that moment. And I think I need someone to push me and be like, no, you need to keep going, you need to keep seeing it through. And like, some of my family members did do that. Some of my family members did tell me like, you're gonna regret it if you get off, like don't get off just yet, like really think about it. And like they did say that, friends did say that, but when it came down to it, like me having like mental breakdowns on the trail, they were like, you need to get off. So I think just having discussions with them of being like, instead of saying like get off, like telling me to, go to a hostel for a day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever, go stay in a hotel or something instead. And just like suggesting that instead of being like, get off trail. I think I need to have those discussions with my family. I didn't beforehand because I didn't think that that was how my hike was gonna go. So now that I know that that might be a possibility in a future through hike, I would definitely have those discussions with my family and friends of like what I would need them to tell me in situations, just so that way I have that support going into it and like that strong like, you need to do this, girl, because you want to do this. Another thing that kind of stressed me out as far as like family goes is like the communication aspect. I felt like I never had time to do everything. I had one person in my work hemisphere, my work life, that I was kind of like speaking to update my work people, my work friends, my colleagues, if you will. And it worked so well. I absolutely loved her. Thank you so much. I'm not going to say her name because I doubt she wants me to say her name publicly, but you know who you are if you're watching this video. You're the best. But I would just kind of update her from time to time and like send her pictures from time to time. And she started like a group chat with the whole like my peeps, and she would update them and like send them my little updates. And it was nice because it was like I was still getting to share those moments with everyone that I wanted to share them with, but I wasn't having to like do it one-on-one over and over and over again and like update everyone all the time. So I think that's something that I would definitely implement with my family and like my friends too, is like have like one point person that I would just like update, and then if anyone wanted to know how I was doing, they could contact that person, or that person could update everyone and just kind of know where I'm at. Not to say that I didn't enjoy like communicating with everyone. I just think it was a lot to like have to communicate with everyone because I didn't have that plan set in place. So I think like in the future, I would definitely set a plan. And then like if I wanted to communicate with people separately, I could communicate with people separately. It's not like I would just like completely stop talking to everyone. But I definitely think that would help, and it would take a lot of like pressure off of me to have to communicate with everyone, you know, with the Garmin too. I think the Garmin's a little bit easier because it's like one message sent out to everyone, but I didn't find myself having to use it a lot because most of the time we had signal at camp. So I was able to like text people. So I didn't really have to send the Garmin. So yeah, I mean, I think just setting that up to where I have like one point person, communicate with them, and then move on from that. Money. Now, I made a video about saving up for the trail. My air conditioning's turning on, so it's gonna get a little bit louder, sorry. But I made a video talking about what I like, how I saved up and different ways that I saved up for trail, and like how I was able to pay for my attempted through hike. But I think a big thing with me is not like that I didn't have enough money, is that I was nervous to spend the money on the trail. I saw so many people in their videos talk about people having to get off trail at the, like they're doing great as far as the hiking goes, they didn't have injuries, whatever, but by the time they get to like, I don't know, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, whatever, New York, they didn't have enough money to like finish the hike and they have to get off. And I didn't want that to happen to me. Now granted, I had well over enough saved, like I would have been fine if I were to have stayed out there. I was definitely very frugal at the beginning of trail. I didn't want to stay at the nicest places. I didn't want to stay in town too often because I didn't want to spend too much money. When I would go to resupply, I would get like the cheapest things. Like I ate ramen, like you don't want to know how many times I had ramen for dinner. Like it's probably like I'm probably made of ramen noodles now, like it's bad, like, but like ramen was so cheap on trail, so I was always just like, oh, I'll just get ramen for dinner, like it's fine. And my grocery shops or resupply shops were so much cheaper than everyone else's, and they're like, how is it so cheap? And it's like, because I eat ramen for dinner every night. Like that's something where I was like, I'm gonna spend the less amount of money on the beginning of the trail, so that way at the end of the trail I can kind of splurge, and like when I get to like the White Mountains, I can stay in a hut, and like I can have the money to like stay in Maine for like a week or something after the through hike if I wanted to. Like I didn't want to like be at the end of my through hike and be like, crap, I don't have a job, I don't have any money, like I have to get a plane ride home and like go like live with family because I have no money left to pay rent. Like I didn't want that to happen to me. So I was so worried about money that a lot of times like I would say no to certain things that I wanted to do or that I wanted but I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to spend the money. Going into prepping myself for trail, that would be something where I would just like tell myself, you know, don't be so worried about the money. If you need to go into town, you need to go into town. If you want to have an extra adult beverage while you're at dinner that night, have an extra adult beverage at dinner that night. If you want to get a salad, an appetizer, entree, and dessert in town, do that. Like, don't worry so much about the money aspect, and just like worry about, is this making me happy? Is this bringing me joy? Now, with that being said, I would definitely save up the same amount of money I saved up, because having that cushion that I had, definitely like towards, basically by the time I got out of the Smokies, or like midway through the Smokies, I was like, you know what? I'm willing to spend more money, you know? And so by the time I get to that point, like I was like ready. So I think definitely saving up enough money, and maybe even a little bit more than I saved up, would help me get to that point sooner. And I would just start buying things that bring me joy earlier on in trail, buying better meals. I mean, the first time I bought a backpacking meal on trail was in Hot Springs. All the rest of the meals I bought were either north sides, ramen, snacks, mac and cheese. Like, I never bought like an actual backpacking meal. I had some from before trail, but on trail I didn't buy any until Hot Springs, a month into trail. So if that tells you anything about like how I was spending money on my resupplies, I don't know. But yeah, just not worrying so much about the money, and just saving up enough, or saving up extra like I did this last time, and just reminding myself, you know, you can spend the money. Okay, so now to the on-trail things. I have 3 things that I have thought of or I've seen in comments. So the first one is YouTube. I most definitely would continue to do YouTube if I were to reattempt a thru hike. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely adored taking the video, sharing with you guys my thoughts, posting, seeing you guys' comments. I love doing that, and I would definitely continue to do that. And so much so I would continue to do daily vlogs, because that's what I liked watching when I was, or when I'm like watching Appalachian Trail videos. I like to watch the daily vlogs. Weekly vlogs are okay, but you only see snippets of people's days, and you don't get to see like all the views. You don't get to see all the ins and outs of getting into town, getting back out of town. You kind of just hear like, okay, we're going into this town, and then you never see any of the town, and then it's like, okay, we're back on the trail. And you only get to see like little like 1-minute clips from the day. Like, I like sharing daily videos, so that's definitely something I would continue to do if I were to reattempt a thru hike. But one thing that I would do differently is spend a little bit less time in the comment section. Now, I enjoy commenting back with you guys, interacting with you guys, but when I was in my tent at night and like I had signal enough to be able to like go on to YouTube and like interact with you guys, I would, and it definitely would keep me up later, so I would sleep less. And then when I was in town, I was kind of doing the same thing. I would spend my 0 days working on YouTube, editing the videos, putting them up, and then responding to comments and stuff. And I would spend a lot of time doing that. And one thing, I was talking to another YouTube vlogger who's still out on the trail right now. I'm so proud of her. But she was saying like, Laura, you need to spend less time in the comment section. Like, it's not only like wasting your time, or not wasting, she didn't say wasting my time, but not only like taking up a lot of your time, but it's also affecting my mental status. Like, most of the comments, you guys were great. Most of the comments were very supportive, but I tended to get a lot of like mansplaining, I would say. I would get a lot of people telling me like how to do things, and like I feel like that's pretty typical for YouTubers. Will get a lot of people to explain how to do things the way that other people think you should do them, and so it kind of started to like affect my brain, because it's like I'm constantly being told to do something different than what I'm being told to, and it's like, yeah, I shouldn't worry about what other people are thinking, what other people are saying I should do. But for me, that's something that I've struggled with my whole life, is focusing on like what other people think, and I've been working on it. Been working on it my whole life. But bringing in all those comments from various different people was definitely difficult on me. So that's something as far as YouTube that I would do differently. Yes, I would continue to post the daily vlogs, but I would just spend a little bit less time in the comment section, and a little bit more time focusing on like actually producing and editing the videos. Now, nutrition. This is something that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about backpacking meals, that I didn't buy my first one till Hot Spring. Nutrition, it was very hard for me to keep up with the amount of calories that I needed to keep up with. Whew. I would say I never really developed the hiker hunger. A lot of people, by the time I would say probably Franklin-ish to maybe like in the Smokies-ish, people started developing their hiker hunger where they were hungry all the time and eating so much food. And I never really got that. Yeah, I'd be hungry, but just like typical hunger. And for me, like at home when I exercise or like when I run or something, like typically I'm not hungry for a few hours after that. So like hiking for me, it was really hard. Like I would come into camp, I would set up my camp, and then I wouldn't be hungry for another few hours, but it's like, I can't wait another few hours because it's gonna get dark and like I need to get into my tent, I need to sleep, I need to get my YouTube stuff done. And so I typically would just eat when I wasn't hungry, and it was really hard for me to like intake so many calories when I wasn't hungry. So just like kind of making a point to eating more while I was on trail, maybe if it's not just like big meals at dinner, maybe just doing a little bit more snacking throughout the day so I eat a little bit more. Another thing was protein throughout the day. I got so many comments. Girl, you need to have more protein. I know I did. But previous to trail, I was vegan for quite a while. Or I guess I should say plant-based for quite a while. And then I became a vegetarian before trail. And then like right before trail, I decided that I was gonna start eating like regular meat because I figured on trail, like that's what I would have more accessibility to. And I didn't want to feel like I was lacking in protein. So I'm coming from basically eating plant-based to going into a world where it's like very hard to find plant-based things because it's a lot of small towns, resupplying in small grocery shops, things like that. So it was hard for me to get protein at first. But I've learned a lot since then. I would definitely make a point to get more protein throughout the day. I would definitely have a protein shake or protein powder with me. That's something that I picked up in Gatlinburg. And I had planned to do that before trail, that I was gonna bring my protein powder. And for some reason I didn't bring it with me to Atlanta. And then I didn't pick any up until I got to Gatlinburg. I really don't know why, but I loved having that the second half of the Smokies, having protein powder in the morning. So I would just make a little shake with my breakfast and I would just drink it with me on the trail. I kept it in a little Gatorade bottle, and that Gatorade bottle was just solely for protein powder and protein shakes. So I would do that, and that was really good. Like I really enjoyed that. So that's definitely something that I would continue, is having some sort of protein powder with me for every like a daily intake. I did do a lot of like bars and stuff like that throughout the day, but I would say 50% of the time they were just like a regular bar. They weren't like a protein bar. So I would definitely make a point to get more protein filled bars and cookies and stuff like that, like the Lenny Larry's cookies. I absolutely love those. I would eat those like as part of my lunch a lot of days, and those have a lot of protein in them, so I would definitely make a point to have those as part of my resupplies as well. And just adding more like regular meats and stuff into like my cooked meals. So at dinner at night, adding in like jerky or some sort of dehydrated meats, I think would definitely help me to rebuild up that strength from all those muscles that I'm breaking down throughout the day. Another thing that I talked about earlier was the backpacking meals. So I did not buy my first backpacking meal until until Hot Springs. Isn't that wild? So I did bring some backpacking meals with me for the first section because I had bought them before trail. So I had them already. So I had like, I think like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of them for me to eat for dinners up and through Neal's Gap. Well, what ended up happening is I didn't eat all of them, and I ended up keeping the Backpackers Pantry lasagna, and I saved that for the next section after Neal's. But then after that, I guess like Franklin all the way up to Hot Springs, I didn't have any backpacking meals. And even from like Neal's Gap, basically I only had one until Hot Springs. So I definitely think I would make a point to getting more backpacking meals, like the dehydrated meals for dinners. Wouldn't do it for every dinner because obviously that's super expensive. but you know, probably like every other dinner or maybe a couple times every resupply, getting a couple of those, because they have a lot of vegetables in them and a lot of micronutrients and some protein usually built into them that I was not getting from my mac and cheeses and my North Sides and my ramens. So definitely just making a point to getting those, I think would definitely help out with my overall nutrition, my energy levels throughout the day, my just replenishing my body throughout the day. I think that would help to have those. Last thing as far as nutrition that I would do differently if I were to reattempt would be to make sure that every single time I go into town I have vegetables. Now, I tried when I went into town to be the wonderful vegetable queen that I should have been, but pizza called my name, man. Pizza called my name. I'm a big pizza fan. If you know me, you know that I love pizza. I grew up on Tombstone pizzas, like, you know. I would make a point to have some sort of salad every single time I went to town, or some sort of side vegetable every single time I went to town, because I did not do that and I needed more vegetables in my life to help with just overall health, energy levels, fixing muscles, fixing ankles and joint pains. All those things could have been helped by adding in vegetables in town, and I did not do that. So that's definitely something I would make a point of, is to add like a side salad every single time I went to town, or some sort of vegetable. The last thing I'm going to talk about today is hydration. Now, there was a common phrase that was said amongst our group, was hydrate or dihydrate. I did not come up with this. This was just something that other people said, and I would say I was in the dihydrate group. I didn't want to start off this way, and you know, the first two sections, I would say I did fairly well with my water, but I found a lot of times that I wouldn't want to drink water later in the day, because then I would have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and get out of my warm sleeping bag. So I would choose to drink a lot of less water in the afternoons. And then it got to the point where I stopped drinking so much water in the mornings, because I didn't want to have to go down to the water supply in the morning, because I was always the last one to leave camp. So I'd be like, oh, and now I'm gonna be another 10 minutes behind everyone else because I have to go filter water. So I would end up just like leaving camp with like half a liter most mornings. I'd like look up and be like, okay, there's water like a mile on, like, so I would have like half a liter, and then I would get there and like I'd still have that half a liter, and there'd be like another water source like half a mile past that. So I'd be like, I can just wait till the next one, because I wouldn't want to stop and I would want to keep going. It was always like so much like time based for me, like filtering water is going to take so much time, and like I didn't want to like get to camp and be the last one at camp. I always wanted to get to camp right away. So my hydration really suffered because of that. So something that I would make a point to, and I tried to start doing this when we started off in the Smokies, I tried to make a point to have more water. I was like, I'm gonna drink at least half a liter every mile. And then what happened in the Smokies was there's not a lot of water sources in the Smokies, and while we were there in the Smokies, I can't speak for any other time frame, but while we were there, some of the water sources were like dried up. So you'd walk like 0.2, 0.3 off trail to the water source and it'd be dried up. Or most of the water sources were like shelters. So you would have to go walk to the shelter, which was like 0.2, 0.3, and then there'd be like another 0.1 to get to the water source that was past the shelter. So all the water sources were always really far, or they were dried up, or there just honestly was like a lack of water sources in the Smokies for us. So I tried really hard. That first day I was doing so good. I was drinking half a liter, and then we like walked past one of the water sources apparently. So then I had to like hold on to that like last half liter for like 2 miles, and then we got to the water source, and it just like ended up like not working out, and I didn't hold to the like half liter thing because of the Smokies. And then after the Smokies, we know I went into hot springs, and so I started to catch on to the fact that I needed to drink more water. And so that's something I would definitely make a point of going into trail, is just having that like hard, I need to drink at least half a liter of water every mile. And then, you know, kind of going from there. I got to Gatlinburg as I picked up some electrolytes. And this definitely helped me out big time, because coming out of Gatlinburg, I lost one of my water bottles. So I ended up helping out with my hydration by having those electrolytes. I was able to stick some electrolytes in my last half liter to help me like feel at least a little bit more hydrated, even though I really wasn't, but it tricked my brain into thinking I was. So definitely having a little bit more electrolytes, like sticking some of those drink mixes. I did use a lot of that like Noon or None, or however you pronounce it, N-U-N. I started using those and I really liked those. So that's definitely something that I would definitely continue to use if I were to go back out and reattempt. And I would probably start off the trail with those, having like one a day maybe, just to help replenish electrolytes. And that's something we learn in running, is that once you lose your electrolytes, like they're gone for that day. Like it's hard to replenish them while you're running. So I'm sure it's probably the same thing with hiking. So just, you know, starting off the day, having one of those, I think would definitely help. So those are just a few of the things that I would do differently if I were to reattempt to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. I have been reflecting upon this and, you know, thinking more and more about if I want to go out and reattempt it next year or the following year. And, you know, just reflecting on it, it's really helping me figure out how to be more successful next go around. So I definitely appreciate y'all for requesting this video, because it helped me reflect a little bit more on my failed attempt. Anywho, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.